Good morning. My name is Marcus Kauke from Sandler Training, and today I'm presenting to you from the Institute of Sales Management, why is your sales manager your biggest liability? Great salespeople often make terrible managers. If you promote your best salesperson, often what happens is you end up losing your best salesperson and gaining a terrible manager. Being able to sell is a very different skill set from being able to manage. Managers only have two real functions in life. One is to hire the best people, and two is to be able to get the best out of them. Bad managers often behave as if recruitment is a chore. They put off recruitment until they absolutely have to, when there's a vacancy in a territory, or if they are looking to replace somebody. And it's a mistake. The best sales managers have a policy of people banking. They're constantly in recruitment. And this is one of the key blind spots that prevent excellence in any sales organization. Bad managers don't know what good looks like. They haven't designed the ideal candidate. And as a result of that, what they tend to do is they tend to recruit in their own image only weaker. They tend to recruit for skills, experience, and historical results. Skills, experience, and results are backward-looking. They're lagging indicators. They're not predictors of success. Predictors of success are characteristics like attitudes, beliefs, and values. Attitude towards selling, attitude towards money, attitude towards the customer, attitude towards the competitive landscape, attitude towards personal responsibility. Beliefs about who is responsible and who has to take control. Beliefs about the importance of filling the pipeline consistently, constantly, without fail. Values about integrity. Values about the role of a salesperson to help and only focus on a win-win or no-deal outcome, to be able to walk away from bad business if it's bad for you, if it's bad for your prospect, or if it's bad for your company. Salespeople have a responsibility to do that, and the problem is that most managers, when they're recruiting, don't really understand how to uncover that. Great cognitive abilities, the ability to bounce back from knockbacks and failure, being able to cope with changing environments and being able to perform at their peak in changing conditions. So, for example, if a recession hits or a competitor comes into the marketplace or they find that they're losing business, managers need to be able to uncover whether or not a salesperson has that natural cognitive aptitude. And they also need to be people who learn consistently. And bad managers don't really dig for understanding how a salesperson learns constantly. The best salespeople are constantly learning. They're aggressive learners. They take personal responsibility for their own development. They're not always looking for handouts, or they're not waiting for the company to train them. They go out and they find mentors. They go out and they read. They actively participate in training, webinars, podcasts. They read widely. They recommend books. And the most important forward-looking characteristic is habit. What someone does repeatedly in the past, they will do repeatedly in the future. So if someone has a prospecting habit, chances are they will bring that prospecting habit to their new role. But sales managers often don't really understand how to uncover whether someone has a habit of prospecting, of asking insightful questions, of controlling the sale, good organizational habits. They don't understand how to look for the best planning habits. Salespeople, the best salespeople, understand that they are strategic generals who are waging a war against the competition. It's critical that they understand how to plan strategically, and they create dilemmas, not problems, for their competition. This divides the competition. It causes them to hesitate. They understand how to map out an account and how to pursue it so that they turn an account into a marketplace. But bad managers don't really know how to look for that. So what they ask is hypothetical questions. They ask questions like, what would you do if, rather than give me half a dozen examples of when. Bad managers don't make job interviews uncomfortable. This is a tactical and strategic error. Interviews should never be a pleasant experience for the candidate. Why? Because the person you hire is the person they become under pressure. When they're in front of a gnarly CFO or a very dominant chief executive or a procurement manager who's giving them hell, they need to be calm under fire. They need to be able to control the sale. And you as the manager need to make sure that you're putting them through their paces, that you're putting them under pressure to see who they become when they're uncomfortable, when they're under pressure. If you only try and get them to be comfortable, then that's the person you're going to get. Now, if you've ever hired James Bond only to discover he turns into Mr. Bean the minute he's on your payroll, then chances are you didn't dig deep enough for the leading indicators, and you were so focused on trying to sell them the company and the job that you didn't get them to go through their paces. Bad managers tend to have a laissez-faire attitude and let salespeople just get on with it. They have an attitude which is, I hired adults, let me just leave them alone and get on with it. This is a huge, huge mistake. The first 120 days of any new hire are when they are putting you, your company, and the job on probation. They're deciding, is this the job that I was sold? Do I like the people I'm working with? Is this the right decision for me and my family? Can I do this job? And great managers understand that there are three key questions that every new hire needs to be able to address. What do they need to know? By when do they need to know it? And where can they find it? The best managers make sure that they introduce their salespeople to the relevant people within their own organization and say, this is Marcus. He's a new hire. Make sure you do everything you can to help him get off to a good start. And a good manager will introduce the new salesperson to all the support people, the technical people, the consultants, the operations people, the technical deliverers, first line support, customer service, finance, all of those people, to make sure that they are made to feel welcome, and also that they give them a plan, a written, clear, specific plan. Ambiguity is the mother of all foobarrs. If you are not clear, then you will create confusion. What you'll do is you'll encourage your salespeople to guess, to hope, or to paralyze, in which case they won't do the job. Ineffective managers often carry a bag. What does that mean? They carry a personal target. Now, I understand that in smaller organizations, sometimes the sales manager is the best salesperson and they have to carry a target. But given the choice of focusing on getting the best out of your people or hitting your own quota and getting paid your commission so you can pay the mortgage, take your family on holiday, what are you going to do? So my strong recommendation is that managers should not carry a target themselves, no personal quota. Their job is to get the best out of their people. They should be trainers, coaches, and mentors. They should clear the path so that salespeople can do their best work every day. Make sure that they have the resources they need in order to do their job. Bad managers frequently think that salespeople are money motivated. 10 years as a headhunter of salespeople taught me one thing, that salespeople often put money fifth or sixth in their order priority. Now, I know this sounds counterintuitive, but Salespeople sell for their reasons, not the manager's reasons, not the company's reasons. So one of the most important things that you can do as a manager is tie their personal goals to their corporate goals so that you can leverage that to trigger their internal motivation, because you cannot motivate anyone to do anything ever. Motivation is an internal force. You can inspire, bully, cajole, bribe, trick, but you cannot motivate. Motivation is an internal force. It's a spark that comes from within the individual salesperson. So in the interview process and in the onboarding process and in the regular coaching and mentoring, it's critical that good managers spend their time talking to their salespeople about what's driving them, what their personal goals are, what their motivation is, and uses that as leverage in order to drive the right behavior. Because the only thing that managers have control over is how you compensate and what behaviors you measure, track, and encourage. Bad managers tend to live in ivory towers, play the numbers game, and tend to be spreadsheet jockeys. You cannot manage the numbers. The numbers are a byproduct of the behavior. Great managers are down in the thick of it. They do windscreen training with their salespeople. They're out there in the field at least once a month with each of their salespeople. They're out in the field meeting customers with their salespeople, doing on-the-job coaching. They are experiencing the pressures, the objections, the competitive pressure, the market pressure. They don't play the numbers game. What they do is they focus on behavior, 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 because you can control behavior. And they focus on leading indicators. They don't focus on lagging indicators like number of dials, number of proposals, number of demos, revenue, profit. All of those are backward looking. By the time that information comes in, you've probably already had the train wreck. Your job is to focus on the leading indicators. And the 3 leading indicators great managers focus on is daily, unique, effective conversations. A unique, effective conversation is one where the salesperson dials a number, makes it past the gatekeeper, gets through to the decision maker, and contracts for a 30-second commercial where they will explain the reason for their call, and at the end of the conversation, the decision maker will make a yes or no decision to invite them in. In a traditional face-to-face kind of sales environment, the only thing salespeople are selling on the cold call is the meeting. Do not get sucked into selling the product or the service. So typical cold calls should last between 3 and 8 minutes. Any less than 3 minutes, and you're probably being blown out because your 30-second commercial is wrong, your tonality is wrong, or your upfront contract is weak. If it lasts longer than 8 minutes, you're probably moving into selling the product or service, in which case you're likely to be slammed with objections, stalls, delays, and requests to send information. Bad managers hire for lagging indicators. I've already covered that, but again, let's look at the model. We use a model called SEARCH: skills, experience, attitudes, beliefs and values, cognitive abilities, results, cognitive abilities and habits. One of the most important attitudes and beliefs is self-concept. One of the best predictors of success is a strong self-concept, the ability to look yourself in the eye, in the mirror, and like the human being looking back. To have a strong self-concept as a salesperson, not hiding behind some shoddy title like business development or consultant. You're proud to be a salesperson. Nothing happens in the economy without someone selling it first. Selling is a noble profession. It's a force for good. Great salespeople help prospects realize they have a problem, often without them even knowing that they had that problem in the first place. They're suffering from a bunch of symptoms, and great salespeople focus on diagnosing the real problem. So a great leading indicator is the ability to ask tough, insightful questions. That is a great leading indicator. The ability to have difficult conversations, to challenge the prospect's thinking, to have conversations about money. Another great leading indicator is a strong money concept. So an exercise I like to run when I'm interviewing on behalf of my clients is to ask the salesperson, at what point am I reaching a number that you consider to be a lot of money? £1,000, £2,500, £5,000, £10,000, £25,000, £50,000, £100,000, £250,000, £500,000, £1 million, £2.5 million, £5 million, £10 million, £25 million, £50 million, £100 million. Now, depending on where the salesperson considers a lot of money, it may be a challenge for them to sell that product or service, because if they stop at, say, £50,000 and their typical product order value is around $250,000 or $500,000, they're going to struggle conceptually, and they will find a way to move into buyer empathy. So they'll say to themselves, well, that's expensive. And you'll see from their track record when you ask about their discounting habits that they'll often discount prematurely or needlessly. So watch out for looking at lagging indicators and focus on the leading indicators of attitudes, beliefs and values, cognitive abilities and habits. Bad managers measure what they can't control. Great managers focus on what they can control. So I've talked about unique, effective conversations. The second part is the velocity that a salesperson is moving opportunities through the funnel from lead to suspect to prospect. Unique, effective conversation through to prospect to qualified prospect to closable prospect to closed, and then looking at how they cross-sell and upsell, how they're contracting. Make sure that you're focusing on these three leading indicators: unique, effective conversations on a daily basis, the velocity with which they're pushing opportunities through the pipeline, and the volume of qualified to closable prospects. A qualified prospect meets the 5 criteria for a unique, effective conversation, and they have answered the, let me start again. A prospect is someone who is in your target market, is a decision maker, is willing and able to make the decision to invite you in and buy from you, is a decision maker, is willing to give you access to the people you need to do your job, willing and able to invest the time, the money, and the necessary resources to make the job happen, is working towards a clearly defined timetable, and has a pain that you can fix today. A qualified prospect meets those 5 criteria, and they have answered at least 70% of the questions you need to have answered. A closable prospect has answered all of the questions, 100% of them, and meets those 5 criteria, and all the answers have come from all the cast of characters. So these are the key measures that great managers focus on. Bad managers will focus on those lag indicators like dials, proposals, demos, first meetings, without a clear future next step. Bad managers are afraid of conflict, so they tolerate poor performance. They don't confront it. They also fear conflict within the team, so they don't encourage constructive conflict. Constructive conflict is a good thing. It's where you disagree. It's out of constructive conflict that better solutions arise. It's where everybody understands that there are parameters, i.e., it doesn't become personal, everybody has a voice, and you don't interrupt when people are saying their piece, but you can argue the toss. You can argue your position, and at the end of the argument, then a decision is made, and then everyone backs it. But bad managers won't have that conflict in their team. And as a result, what tends to happen is problems fester, and they go from problem to crisis. Bad managers hang on to non-performers. There is a simple rule in recruitment, which is never compromise on recruitment, and better no breath than bad breath in a sales territory. If you focus your attention on trying to raise the performance of your non-performers after you have tried to help them and put them on performance management, and they haven't made the necessary changes or move the needle to the right, then it's your responsibility to replace them. And this is where we come back to people banking. If you are interviewing on a daily or weekly basis at least 3 or 4 people, and you focus on making sure that you've got 5 or 6 strong candidates in the background who are willing and able to take a job if you offer it. So your contract with them is, Jim, I haven't got a job for you at the moment, but I'm building up a bank of suitable candidates. So when I do have a job, if you're suitable and you want to work with us, then what we will do is we'll approach you as soon as the job becomes available so that you can then tell us whether or not you can take it. Now, is that agreeable before we go on this interview? And as a result of that, if you have 5 or 6 candidates lying in wait, then it will only take you 4 weeks to fill a vacancy, assuming their notice period is 1 month, instead of the usual 12 to 16 weeks. And you should always recruit up. Make sure that if someone leaves, you do an exit interview and find out what didn't work, how it could have been improved. But focusing your attention on non-performers is a risky strategy, because a 30% increase on someone who's producing 60% of target versus a 30% increase on someone who is delivering 105% of target, it just doesn't make sense to focus your energy and attention on them. Now, actually, before I move on, one other thing I would suggest is great managers play favorites. Play favorites with your top performers and do everything you can to get the best out of them. Bad managers see threats in success. They see top performers as a threat to their job. Great managers are always working towards redundancy. If they're able to hire great people, then funnily enough, most of the management problems disappear. They don't have to scrabble around at the end of the month or quarter to get the results in, and they're always on budget. Great managers see success as a great thing, and they encourage it. They train those people to get better and better. They work with them to develop a career path. They encourage them to reach their full potential. They stretch them. Bad managers try and hold success back because they're afraid for their job. That is a disaster. And if you have a manager who does that, remove them immediately. Bad managers let salespeople go on unplanned sales calls. I don't know what it costs you to fill your pipeline up, but let's assume that we're talking about someone who has to prospect by phone. They probably have a 1 in 7 to 1 in 20 success rate in terms of effectives. And of those effectives, maybe 1 in 5 will invite them in. So that's 35 conversations that they need to have in order to get one meeting. That could be a full day's work. And in some cases, it could be a full week or 2 weeks' work. Now, if they are going on an unplanned sales call where they're winging it, that is a catastrophe waiting to happen. It's the great manager's responsibility to make sure that a salesperson is clear about what they're trying to achieve by the end, what good looks like, what acceptable looks like, what the worst acceptable looks like, what their walkaway point looks like, the questions they need to ask and get answers to, what they want to have happen at the end, the kind of questions prospects are likely to ask, any competitive threats that they can prepare for, how they're going to respond to any objections through reverses. It's critical that salespeople rehearse. They pre-call plan in writing. They rehearse with the manager. Then they execute, and then they come out and they do a written and verbal post-call debrief. This massively increases the probability of an early out for a non-prospect or an early advancement and a close towards a yes decision with an order. Bad managers don't do role play, often because their salespeople don't like it. I would play the world's smallest violin if I could find it on my desk. The reality is, role play is practice. It's making sure that your salespeople have lived the experience before they go in. So when they turn up, they're not winging it. If your salespeople are winging it, then you, as the manager, are a disaster. You're costing the company money. You're risking, in fact, what you're doing is you're sacrificing success, because sacrificing is going from higher to lower value with no upside. Risking is going from lower to higher value with the possibility of losing some or all of what you've got. Doing role play is a risk. It's a positive thing. Not doing it is a sacrifice, and it will cost your business a fortune. If you think about what it costs you to get in front of a prospect and what your hidden cost of sale is, it could easily cost you all of your profit, but it doesn't appear on the balance sheet because you see it as a sunk cost and a cost of doing business. Well, I'm here to tell you now, that is idiocy. It's pure stupidity, and it is negligent in the extreme. Make sure your salespeople practice before they go in so they don't wing it and they don't go under pressure, because the salesperson who gets put under pressure has their amygdala fire off in their brain that triggers freeze, flight, or fight, and they make stupid mistakes. They make premature, unilateral concessions, unnecessary concessions. They say things that they shouldn't. They may even be tempted to lie. And the moment they get caught in the lie, that is the moment the prospect can never trust another word that comes out of their mouth. When a bad manager sees that targets aren't being hit, they downgrade the targets, they move the goalposts, and they don't focus on modifying the behavior, the one thing they actually have control over. I see this a lot in organizations, and as a result, what tends to happen is they create a culture where it's expected that the number at the beginning of the year isn't going to be the number that they deliver at the end of the year. The net result of that is that they lose huge amounts of revenue. They give away profit, and they allow the competition in. They lose customers because they're not focusing on modifying the behavior, the one thing that they can control. They can focus on their prospecting behavior and focusing on unique, effective conversations. They can look at the velocity of an opportunity and identify where it's getting stuck. Because too often what tends to happen is the pipeline, the funnel, tends to be thin at the top, then it fattens out in the middle where there are a lot of think it overs, call me backs, proposals out on the street with no decision. And they don't focus on clearing out the pipeline. And they allow salespeople who are weak and don't have enough in their pipeline, and as a result don't have choice, to keep lying to themselves and fabricating a forecast, which is basically a work of fiction, by saying, oh, it'll happen next month, boss. I remember sitting in on one sales meeting as an observer, and a salesperson said, boss, I know this is the 10th month that this deal has slipped, but it's going to happen because they're very excited now. And the sales manager actually put it back into forecast. You can't run a business like that. The business is constantly under pressure trying to work out where it's going to get its money from. And if you're not controlling the behavior and modifying the behavior in order to make sure that you're identifying where the bottlenecks are, then you're going to find yourself in a terrible situation with your forecast being wildly inaccurate. If you're managing the behavior, your forecast should have no more than 5 to 10% variance in any given quarter. You should know precisely where you're going to get the money from, when it's going to land, for how much, and eliminate surprises. Bad managers tend to do training. They tell you how and they criticize. They don't get you to do it yourself. They don't get the team to discuss amongst themselves how they would fix the problem. And so what they create is a culture of learned helplessness. They tend to focus their attention on teaching rather than developing. They don't ask insightful questions. And as a result, the salespeople have a tendency to just wait to be spoon-fed. That doesn't create interdependent salespeople who can work on their own but know when to ask for help. It creates a culture, particularly where you have criticism and where you punish failure, where the individual salesperson is attacked for asking for help or for failing, instead of seeing failure as your best teacher. And as a result of that, what you get is salespeople who are afraid to take risk. Other times, you have managers who won't criticize and won't confront poor performance. And so what happens is the manager has to rescue, and then they become a bottleneck and they create a culture of learned helplessness. Neither of these is healthy for your sales organization. Bad managers communicate unclearly, sporadically, and impersonally. If you are not clear in your communication, then people will be uncertain about what is expected of them. And then when you fire them for not doing what you expected, you can only have yourself to blame. So clarity is key. Make sure that you communicate on a regular basis and make it personal. Engage with your salespeople. Find out what's going through their heads, what their mental condition is. Are they coping? Is there any help that they need? Are there any hopes or fears that they have? What is it that they need in order to do their best work? Are you challenging them, asking them tough, insightful questions? Are you communicating with them on a regular basis? My recommendation is that a sales manager speak to their salesperson for about 3 minutes a day. And once a week, they have a coaching call. If you have too many people to do that, and I'd be surprised if you did, because if you do, then you probably need another layer of management. But once a week, I would recommend that you are engaging with them, having a coaching call, and also doing a pipeline review. Now, a pipeline review will involve asking some really critical questions, like what's new in your pipeline? What have you advanced in your pipeline this week? What's the agreed contracted for next step? What's not advanced in your pipeline this week? If not, why not? What are you going to do to advance it or disqualify it this week? By when? What don't you know? What have you disqualified this week? Why? What have you won or closed this week? How much revenue or profit is in that deal? What's the next agreed step? Have you done a handover to operations? Have you asked for referrals? What happened? What have you lost this week? Why did we lose? If it was money, why didn't you disqualify it sooner? What will you do next time to ensure that if we are too expensive, we learn that fast and waste no time? Remember, it's never about the money. If you want to flush out the real reasons, ask about the money early. Where did they end up going? What's the value of qualified opportunities moving into your closable section of your pipeline? Do you have 300 to 500% of your quota moving from qualified to closable for this period? If not, how are you going to build it up to that level? By when? What actions or resources do you need me as your manager to take to help you achieve that level of pipeline? What lessons did you learn? Have you changed your pre-call plan template yet? Are there any roadblocks I can help you overcome or clear? If you'd like a copy of that, email me with pipeline review questions in the subject line at mcauchi@sandler.com. Great managers contract, don't control. The idea is that what they're doing is they are agreeing with the salesperson exactly what is committed on both sides. If you do this, I'll do that. We'll do this by then. We'll measure it thus. And as a result, what they do is they get control, but through mutual agreement, mutual acceptance, mutual understanding, mutual comfort, and mutual commitment. Bad managers use technology and systems to audit and supervise, not to enable. Your CRM system should be a sales enablement tool. Any account planning tool shouldn't be devised by audit for audit purposes. It should be devised by salespeople for salespeople. They should be simple. They should be living, working documents. Your system for disqualifying, for asking questions, for attracting prospects, your systems for interviewing, for attracting potential candidates, should be repeatable and scalable and simple. If your tools and systems and technology don't enable salespeople, they will find workarounds to avoid them. They won't complete their CRM, and your CRM will be full of rubbish like call back next month or interested. That is not useful data. Bad managers think you work for them. Great managers know you serve your team. The greatest among us serve the most. Great managers understand that it is your job to help them be their best, to perform at their best, to constantly evolve and develop. And by understanding their personal motivation and coaching, training, mentoring, developing, clearing the path, staying in constant contact, supporting, protecting them from idiotic decisions of your senior management, then great managers enable great salespeople to do their best work. Bad managers rarely review. They let appraisals slip and they don't behave fairly. If everyone in your sales team has those pipeline review questions in writing, they know exactly what is expected of them. Great managers review weekly, monthly, quarterly. Appraisals happen every 90 days, so that you're never more than 90 days between identifying a problem, putting in place a program to improve it, and measuring and tracking the improvements. Great managers, when there's a task or a project that needs to be done, understand that you can have interim review points. So if there's a month to complete a project, then they may have an interim review at 1 and 2 weeks to make sure that action is being taken and the project is advancing. When they're doing appraisals, they make sure that the salesperson comes prepared with learning and development plans of their own, and that they are asking for help, because the salesperson is not the finished article any more than the manager is. Managers are very poorly serviced in terms of their own training. So if you have sales managers and you are the boss, it's your responsibility to implement regular reviews, regular appraisals, and focus on behavior for your managers. Bad managers want you to follow and obey. That's a disaster. What you need to do is you need to make sure that your salespeople are independent thinkers, that they are creative problem solvers, that they build their own plan so that they take ownership of it. The mistake so many people make in management is they're too directive. Your responsibility is to ensure that your salespeople are able to respond strategically in the field. Strategy is really the application of planning and forethought, so you have more choices than your competition. Now, I'm going to share my screen with you. I hope I'm going to share my screen with you. Okay. There we go. Okay, so this is what I want you to have a look at. We've recently released a book called The Road to Excellence by David Sandler, and there are 14 key blind spots. Not being in recruitment mode, not establishing a hiring process, not tying personal goals to corporate goals, not building a culture of accountability, creating a culture of learned helplessness, not having common organizational language and approach, not capturing best practice, not creating a good onboarding experience for new hires, not knowing how to coach, not training the management team, not focusing on lead generation, not having good, strong methodologies and systems, not planning organizational change initiatives effectively and just winging it or adopting a laissez-faire approach, not sharing the vision with those tasked with implementing it. And there are 4 types of business that come out of this. An at-risk business has every one of those blind spots. An average business has 5 to 8 of those blind spots. Typically, they suffer from complacent leadership and they tend not to adapt. A well-managed business has 1 to 4 of those blind spots at most, and sometimes they get stuck in a comfort zone, especially if they're market leaders. It's a trap being the market leader. And excellent businesses have none of those blind spots, or they've identified them and they address them quickly. And there are 6 P's in the excellence process: planning, territory planning, account planning, pursuit planning, opportunity planning, hiring plan, onboarding plan, learning and development plan. Making sure that you have the right people doing the right job in the right positions. Making sure that you've built your team up with the right type of strengths, the right type of mix of communication styles. Making sure that you've got great people in post. 95%, 98% of all management problems come from having the wrong people in post. If you hired better, most of your management problems would disappear. Making sure you have great processes and systems for everything. Systematize everything. Systems set you free. Working harder is a fool's game. Focus on doing less but better on purpose. Making sure that you measure what matters. We call this performetrics. Making sure that you're measuring what really matters, the leading indicators based around behaviors, so that if you are about to hit the iceberg, you know what to do to adjust in advance of that catastrophe happening. And passion. Salespeople need to have fire in their belly. If they don't have fire in their belly, then what's going to happen is you're going to end up in a situation where the salesperson is going to struggle. Now, the key thing at this point is to make sure you understand that your salespeople are powerful. They're empowered to do their best work every day. If you aren't helping them to do that, then what's going to happen is you will find yourself in a situation where they are unable to perform. Now, if that's the case, then what's going to happen is those salespeople will make excuses. They'll blame, they'll complain, they'll worry, they'll stress. And the net result of that is that you won't be able to get them to perform. So what you need to be absolutely clear about is that it's your responsibility to get the best out of your people. If you are not getting the best out of your people, then that is your fault. So back to the slides. I hope. Slides. Okay. So if you have any questions, then please send them to me now. If you want to build a world-class sales team, then please get in touch with me or go on to Sandler.com for a local Sandler franchise who can help you, and you can crash a class. If you want to come to one of my classes, then go to or email mcauchi@sandler.com, mcauchi@sandler.com, with crash a class in your subject line. Now, if you want to connect with me, LinkedIn, my handle is Sandler Sales Management Trainer. On Twitter, I'm at @the_inquisitor. You can email me at mcauchi or marcus.cauchi@sandler.com. And if you want to find out about predictive hiring, then call me on 07515 937 221. And if you're interested in being mentored, I am also a mentor with the Institute of Sales Management. And if you're a member of the ISM, then go to the members area and look up mentoring. Now, a quick plug. On the 18th of July for Kindle and the 1st of August, my new book, Making Channel Sales Work, written by myself and David Davies, is going to become available. Now, I'm giving away 10 free copies of this book. If you email me with your best war stories of how you've been able to clear the path and win some great business and displace a competitor, or you send me some great questions around channel sales, I will be making a decision in 2 weeks, because in 2 weeks' time, I'll be doing another webinar for the channel, for the ISM, on making channel sales work. So if you've got any questions, please feel free to drop me a line now. No, I'm going to give it 20 seconds. So if you want a free chapter of the new book, and the focus is on channel managers' rights, or you want a free chapter on the road to excellence, then email me at mcalkey@samba.com, and in the subject line, write free chapter and either making channel sales work or the road to excellence, or both. So that's Marcus Cauchi signing off. No one question from the audience. Great. How does one get your CEO to buy into this if he doesn't believe? Okay, very good question. So let me ask you this. If your CEO doesn't really buy in, then you need to work on a sales, treat it like any other sale. My recommendation is you identify what is holding your CEO back, what's frustrating him or her. Identify what their pain is, and see this as the long game. Don't try and convince them, because a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. When you are trying to sell this idea internally, it's critical that you identify what drives the CEO, how they are measured, what their frustrations are. It's crucial that you concentrate on making sure that they feel that this is their idea. So having a good plan, identifying what their pinch points are, what's keeping them awake at night, what's causing them to miss their targets, what threats there are to their ability to do their job well. Identify who else is being affected. And one thing I really like to do is identify the pain by numbers. So identify, for example, what the cost of a wrong hire is. If you Google Marcus Cauchi, LinkedIn, the true cost of wrong hire in sales, I've written an article on this subject. I'm not sure if you're aware, but it could cost you somewhere between 35 and 125 times basic salary if you hire the wrong salesperson. A salesperson who isn't performing could easily burn through your leads, waste all of that marketing budget. They could easily upset your existing customers. They could leave money on the table. They could leave the door open for your competition to get a foot in the door and to displace you. And you don't just lose the transaction, you lose the repeat business, the lifetime value of that customer. You lose all the referred business that comes off the back of it. CEOs like certainty, predictability. Now, it may be that you have a persecuting, bullying CEO, in which case my recommendation is maybe you need to look for a new role, because chances are you may not be able to convince that person. However, Stephen Covey talks about the tip tiller. The tip tiller is the small rudder that turns the big rudder that turns the supertanker. So if you can make yourself invaluable to that person by providing them with useful insight, by providing them with the questions they need to be asking of their executive leadership and management team, making sure that they are fully prepared for eventualities and helping them to create a plan. So if the crisis looks like it's looming, then you can provide them with the opportunity to work their way out of it, and if necessary, let them take the credit. So does that answer your question? I must have bored you. Okay, I'm going to give it another minute. Are there any other questions? Good, I'm pleased. If you have any questions about trying to sell this concept internally, then by all means, get in touch with me at mcalkey@sandler.com, connect with me via LinkedIn and private message me, and we can have a chat. I'm happy to take a call. My number is 07515 937 221 if you're in the UK. If you're not and you're overseas, it's +44 7515 937 221. Okay, thank you. Okay, unless there are any other questions, I'm going to end the recording in the next 30 seconds. Okay, I'm going to wrap up now. If you send me questions about channel sales, I'm giving away 10 free copies of Making Channel Sales Work. So put your questions to mcalkey@sandler.com. Thank you, Francis. Then send me your questions. The best questions will receive a free copy. Make sure you give me your postal address and your full name so I can send you a copy. And like I said, I'll be giving those away in the next couple of weeks. And I'll also be giving away 5 free copies of The Road to Excellence. If you can tell me your biggest, gnarliest sales management problem with your postal address, then I'll pick the best 5. Thank you all. It's been a real pleasure. Bye-bye.